Hi, welcome everyone to the Relief Podcast. Our guest today, Angie Manson, the CEO, co-founder of Elevate Addiction Services, and host of Going Road with Angie Mason podcast. She's also the owner of CrossFit EAS, a level 1 certified CrossFit coach and a certified drug and alcohol counselor. Welcome to the show, Angie.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Oh, my
Appreciate
pleasure.
it.
So Angie and I first met through our connection in the Arate Syndicate Network, where Ed Milet and Andy Frisella are noble teachers. And what inspired you to get into personal development?
I would say because of my history and past and getting into trouble at a very young age, I was put on the path of self-development at a very young age in order to overcome my addiction, get out of all the trouble I was in. And so for me, I knew it wasn't a one and done. You don't just do some work and then you're good the rest of your life. It is a lifelong process. And so that's what I've spent my life doing, is continually trying to improve myself, my conditions, but then also help others do the same.
That's a noble effort, is in that when we help others, we do help ourselves.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot of, because we're all one. And we're all made from one creator, one God, and we're our brother and sister in under that creator. And I resonate a lot with the work that you do. For the years that I've served as a general contractor at a local Philadelphia-based nonprofit, helping recovering addicts have the second chance at life, career, restoring their families, and being better gifts to the community, to take the dirt out of their eyes and out of their soul and give them new breath. You know, what does that mean to you to come from that low place in your own journey, if you'd like to share some of it, and how you rose through it? Because you have a relentless spirit. You've done 75 hard more times than me, definitely, and a lot. What does it take to hit that bottom and then look up and say, that's where I'm going next?
For me, it was all about perseverance. I noticed like a lot of people will quit before they get there, or the grass is always greener, or let me just handle that and then I'll go back to the way I was. But for me, it's just been a persistence kind of thing where I just won't quit. I won't stop. I won't be deterred. There's so many things that have come across my highway that could have pulled me off of this purpose. But for me, like what do they call that? The North Star was always just keep moving forward. There is no plan B. You just keep doing whatever it is you have to do to make this group and this purpose and basically my passion continue to survive. And I think because of that, and I think this is where it gets a little tricky for entrepreneurs, because there's so much information out there about you should have 8 different revenue streams. You should have a plan C and D and all these other things. And so when people start, in my opinion, when people start putting their attention on all these like backup plans, how much energy and time do you have left to be all in on your original plan? So for me, I've always just been all in on this, and that's kept everything like there is just no option. It's just make it work. And that's why we've been able to do what we've done and then survive. It's 29 years now for me, going from a client to working there to being an executive to running it and to owning it. So it's been a long journey, but at the same time, I'm just still doing the same thing that I was doing way back in the beginning as well.
Wow. So things came full circle. When did you take the belief in yourself and say, I got to take that same strong belief I have in me and instill it in others so they can believe in themselves as well?
Yeah, I was fortunate that happened. So like the first year I was in rehab, I was ordered there by the judge. So I was there because I had to be there or else I was facing prison. Although I'm getting a ton out of it, it's also like it wasn't necessarily my origination or even my acceptance that there was actually a problem. So there was a bit of a denial. But within the second year of me being there, and now I've gotten through my own program. Now I'm helping others. I realized how much helping others actually helps myself, and I also realized like and I'll call it a gift, but my gift of transparency creates a genuineness that other people can relate to, they have similar stories of, and then they're more compelled to share with you and get the help that they need as well. Because for so long, especially with addiction, it's like a very taboo. You're tainted for life. You're a drug addict. But I think we've come a long ways where people understand that's not who the person is. It's some bad choices they're making, but they can fix those choices and go back to being a good person. So I think we've removed a lot of the stigma, which is really cool. But in the beginning, for me, it was all about me figuring out this is my purpose. I love helping people. The way I help people is by sharing with them my experiences. And that's like why I'm still doing what I'm doing.
No, it's your permanent burn, like Ben Newman would talk about, like when your purpose and your why are aligned to your mission and your values, like you're unstoppable force. And you've taken that model of recovery, and some people go nonprofit and some people go for profit. Talk about the differences in both and how you're maybe better able and optimized to help people and meet them where they are through your model.
Yeah, so we started out as a nonprofit and we transitioned to a for-profit probably about 7 years ago. So I have way more experience running it as a not-for-profit than I do as a for-profit. I've not, due to not having masters or any of those kind of degrees, there's been a lot of trial and error of figuring them both out and what works. And I have to say, there's not a huge difference in either. We definitely went the for-profit route because we thought we could get investors, we could get other people to help us expand and grow. And what we didn't realize is after 20 years of running a nonprofit, and even though we're the same people in the same company and the same everything, that's not how we were viewed when we hit the for-profit world. We were seen as, you're a brand new company. But it was like a brand new company with 80 employees. So we didn't realize we were going to have to go through what a new company would, but with this giant burden because we brought everything with us the entire way. So it's definitely taken us a lot longer to establish ourselves under the new business. And we've yet to maximize that. Just like when I was a not-for-profit, we did not maximize that. We weren't getting donations. We weren't doing all those things. We've ran it the same in both ways.
No, when I'm hearing your story, I'm hearing parallels of the Philadelphia organization, where on the one hand is we reach out and we get donations and we have that cause, but if you don't have your systems, processes, and structure underlined, like it's a chaotic environment, and people want to give to where something is certain. That if I make a donation to your organization, I know where it's going and what's going to happen with it, rather than it's going to payroll. Rather than or this other mindset that must change in many environments is this is how we've always done it. Why change now? Did that ever happen in your work where you might have somebody who's good at heart but kind of stuck in their ways, and you tell them,
Oh,
look,
yeah.
we got to adapt.
Yeah, we've gone through that a lot. We've had to remain as completely adaptable as you possibly could be. If you can imagine, we went from the not-for-profit to for-profit. We left the old company. We left our whole old modality. We created a new modality. 100%. We've been running that for 8 years. We've had to do the pandemic. Like, how are we going to navigate a healthcare in California with the pandemic? And so we had to figure that out. Insurance, that changes everything. So for us, it is just the name of the game. We have to be completely 100% adaptable all the time, because the ones who don't adapt, they die. There's just too much. You can't get antiquated or outdated. Your industry, your job, your everything will perish. And so for us, we're always just, when I would say us, because I'm like at the head of the group and I'm completely adaptable and flexible. So my group knows that they have to be that way as well.
Wow. And then what kind of people are gravitated to work in your culture?
The majority are ones who've overcome their own addiction. So a lot of them come through our program. We get them clean. We try each other out during a trainee period to see if it's a good fit. And then if it is, after that 90 days, we'll hire them. So the vast majority have gone through overcoming addiction. And then the ones who've come to us from the outside, they just either love our purpose or love how the company is ran compared to other places, or there's some sort of credential that they can bring to the table that we need. But the vast majority, and by vast, 95% of my staff have all come through the program and overcome addiction.
No, that's really noble. You give someone that second chance, because, again, just for my own relatability, ODAT on Thanksgiving Day, the son of the founder gives a speech, and people pass the microphone around, and I'm crying with them. I don't have that addiction story, but that idea of being lonely at the holidays because maybe those poor choices have burned off some bridges, right?
For
And
sure.
then you find a new family in that culture that you're in, right? To say, you know what, we relate with each other, we understand each other, and we love each other, and warts and all, as you are, as you stand, and as you could be, because I see a greater you in your future, right? And that lifts my spirit. I can imagine how that
Mhm.
lifts your spirit when you see someone graduate, right? Because you have graduates, right? And they
Every
talk to me
Friday.
about every Friday. So talk to us more about what it takes to graduate through the program, and then how you celebrate their success.
Yeah, so every Friday we have a graduation at both centers. We have a South Lake Tahoe Center, which is our 30-day program, and then we have our Santa Cruz Center, which is our full program. So every week we give out certificates to the clients for completing one part of the Elevate program. So there's detox certificate, there's phase 3, 2, 1, and then the final one, which is the graduation. So they're going to get, what is that? Four certificates throughout their program. And if they win Client of the Week, that will be a surprise fifth one, which we like to do as well to keep everybody excited and doing the right things and then acknowledging them for doing that. So every Friday we gather together, we give the certs for the different parts of the graduation. We bring the detox clients down so they can see like this could be me in 2 months. And we get to hear them speak, and then the graduates talk about their whole program. We have, luckily, with the pandemic over, we've been able to bring families back. And so a lot of times we'll have the family of the graduate also speak to the graduate, but on behalf of what they've seen. So I always tell people, like, I could be having the hardest week, like the most difficult, trying week in so many different ways, but you just go to a graduation and clients crying, thanking you for giving their lives back, families thanking you for doing what it takes to keep doing what we're doing. And it just inspires you. You're like, this is why I do what I do. This is why we pick the road that isn't easy. This is why we will walk through the fire so that we can like give people their lives back. And just to know that we created a program that's doing that. And again, like I said, there's just no bigger purpose for me. So anytime I'm feeling like, oh man, I don't know if I could do much more of this, you go to a graduation, which is like every Friday, and you're like, oh yeah, that's why I do it. It's amazing.
Oh, that's lovely. And I think we talked earlier. Actually, I'm going to put in the mail tomorrow of 100 copies of The Power of One More, Ed Milet's book, because obviously we've all read that book, grown by that book, and I'd like to share that with you because I want people to take that momentum that they've built and just catapult themselves into their true purpose. Um,
Yeah,
and
I love that.
no, again, the least I can do, because we've all fallen on hard times, whatever that is, whether it's a broken relationship. Again, there's all kinds of addictions, right? And we're not judging people, right? To go back to Christianity, it's hate the sin but not the sinner.
Yeah,
Right? I'm not judging that person who's addicted. When I walk down Kensington Avenue, I feel bad for them. You know, how can I
yeah,
help you? What can I do for you? Here's some food. Here's some water.
yeah.
You know,
The thing is, we all have a commonality, and that's trauma. We've all experienced something in our childhood. Sometimes it's just a divorce, or there's other things like that where we all experience trauma as we're growing up. And it's just, how do you choose to handle it? And unfortunately, a lot of people's solution ended up being addiction. Other people went super hard. Other people went this other direction. Like, it's just in how we chose to handle what that trauma was. A lot of people just bottle it up and then it explodes at some other point in their life, or they build up walls so nothing can hurt them. Everybody handles trauma in a different way, but we all share the trauma. So the cool thing is, especially for people overcoming addiction, it almost puts them in I don't want to say a better spot than had they never used, but it certainly got to a point where they were forced to confront and handle all these things in their lives. And a lot of times they end up better off than your average person who just led an average life, who never had to confront and deal with a bunch of stuff. So I like to think that people who've had addiction and get help for their addiction, correct help for them, they're actually better off than your average person. It's not a bad thing.
because you go near that edge of life. You have sometimes God interferes and says, "Nope, not yet. You still got some more work to do." And through that, like you had on your pike, Marcus Aurelius Anderson, right?
Yeah.
The
Yeah.
gift of adversity, right? That that whatever our struggles are, it's not a victim mentality, but it's a victor mentality. Because I'm going to win through this. This is happening for us, not to us. And when you can have that difference in someone's life, it's amazing. And then they can lead on to have lives of tremendous impact, and anonymously, right? It's not, if somebody wants to celebrate that they went through this program, I imagine you could celebrate with them. But if people want to stay anonymous and low key, I imagine you protect them as well. Because I think that's a big reason why a lot of people don't want, like you said earlier, it's shameful. Or do people feel this artificial shameness of, oh, I should have known better, or how could I let this happen, or look where my life's become, right? But in that moment of humility, that's when Christ enters us, right? And that power of God to say, you know what, there's a lot more in you than you think there is. And and then you've taken this beautiful spirit of what you've built and wonderful ecosystem, and then you have this podcast, right? And what is your mission with your podcast, Going Rogue with Angie Manson?
So when I first did my first podcast, it was at the beginning of the pandemic, and I was stuck at home like a lot of people. Although we were able to keep our doors open and keep helping clients and bringing people in, we had to limit the amount of people that could come in so that there was less exposure for the people that were there as well as our staff. Being separated from my group was nothing I'd ever been through before. And I knew how hard it was for me. So I imagined how hard it was for other people out there struggling without the group that I had. And so I originated the podcast in order to just be a voice or help in the distance for all the people that were trapped in their home dealing with whatever addictions, which has been exponential since the pandemic. And that was my original purpose. If I could just help one person by doing this, then it is definitely an obligation of mine to continue that. And here we are, almost 3 years later now. And I have, between my two podcasts, I had almost 100 on the first one. I'm up to 50 on the second one. I have almost 150 episodes of just talking to people, trying to help, trying to provide content, information, humor, whatever we can do to help anybody who's unable to come to treatment or just is looking for something funny to listen to. Sometimes we're funny.
It's lovely and it's moving. You had Javon on, right? We were at the Evolve event, and that young man inspired everyone to work harder.
Dude, he inspires me. I'm like, I got to do harder. Look at this kid, man.
That's right, because you take that, and again, a lot of us say, oh, we take that wisdom that we've earned through hard luck experiences and just life, and distill it and concentrate it and give it to somebody half our age. You're like, that's the person.
Yeah. And he is so humble that he just takes it all in. He's not, oh yeah, I've heard it all before. He's like, tell me more, give me more. He wants more and more and more. He has so no ego about him that he is just hungry and eager to have all of it. And that helps people like you and I who are like, oh good, I've got like 30 years of great shit. I want to give it to somebody. And he is the perfect guy for that.
Oh yeah. There's podcasts like yours that inspired me to create my own podcast. Saying like,
awesome.
Yeah, because there's a lot. I'm like, you know what? There's a lot of talent inside of all of us, and all our stories are slightly different. We're all different people. We might have different same choices, maybe even same circumstances happen to us, but it all affected us slightly differently.
Yep.
And here we are to share those lessons, experiences, and then have people get to know us. If they want to work with our work, if they want to engage with us in any way, they at least get to know us before they work with us. So there's that familiarity, especially in your work, right? Because there's this, not just the stigma of treatment of, oh, the bureaucracy, oh, these forms, oh, again, things that could be seen as excuses to us. To others, it's like this Mount Rushmore of, oh, I'm not good enough to seek treatment, or I deserve where I am. And no one deserves where they are. Like I said, as long as you're willing to take that first step, and I imagine you take that first step with you, right? Because tell us more about how you treat people, not just in person, but over the internet too.
Yeah, I would say a big differentiator, and I think this is a barrier for a lot of people, is there's only one modality that's vastly known, AA and NA. And there's been a lot of but their success rate is like 2.5%. It's very low, but it's the one that's known. And so a lot of people don't necessarily want help because they don't realize there's other types of treatment or programs or modalities out there. They know they've tried AA and failed 5 times. They're like, there is no hope for me. There is no help for me. They don't realize that there's other options. So for me, my big goal is to educate people and say, hey, there is other ways. We don't have to subscribe to you're a victim, you have a disease, you are weak, you're powerless. We don't have to agree to any of that stuff. We can be strong and empowered and overcome addiction and not be labeled for the rest of our lives over decisions we made when we were 20 years old. There's so much out there, but I just don't think that it's widely known. And I think that can create the hopelessness. So it's definitely my mission to further educate people and say, hey, there is other ways. There is other ways of thinking, and there is other ways of handling addiction, which it needs to be known. It needs to be more known out there, I think, for sure.
Right, because I think there's addiction, and then there's sometimes the modern addictions, right? Whether it's vaping, right? Sometimes cannabis can be overused and abused. What would you want to tell somebody when they feel that moment of pain and they're like, oh, I need to go get high, or I need to go lose myself so I can not think about what I need to address or what's going on wrong right now in my life?
So one of the things we teach at Elevate, many things, one of which is mindfulness, where you handle your triggers. You recognize, I want to go use right now. Let me find my breath. Let me work my way through it. Let me do the work. But again, that's for somebody who's already done the work. They have that as something to fall back to. Other people, and another big part of Elevate is going to work out, getting in the sunshine, taking a walk, like removing yourself from your head in that moment of time and focusing it elsewhere. If you go into a gym, even though you don't want to be there, after you do a workout, you always feel better. Your endorphins are going, you sweat, like with CrossFit gyms, you hang out with people, you just feel more accomplished. And 99% of the time, whatever thoughts you were having prior, they're just gone. They dissipate. So I always try to push people to go for a walk, go get in the sun, go work out. That'll get you through whatever you need to get through.
Oh yeah, and then that builds your resilience, mental toughness, and strength. I mean, that leads on to the 75 Hard program, which you're a very strong advocate of. It reminds the audience what 75 Hard is and who needs to undertake 75 Hard.
I think everybody should undertake it, but it was invented by Andy Frisella, and it's called 75 Hards because the duration is for 75 days. It is called hard because it is not easy. You do 2 workouts a day. They have to be 5 hours apart, one of which has to be outdoors. One can be outdoors again, or it could be indoors. You have to drink a gallon of water. You have to read 10 pages of personal development book. And you have to take a progress picture every day, which is like the easiest thing. But for some reason, a lot of people fail on that, which is weird in itself. But you just got to be, and you have to pick a diet. You have to stick to it. And you also don't drink alcohol. A lot of people will do this as a hard reset. Let's say their diet and exercise have gone way out the window. You can put this in and remedy that. It's also long enough where you actually create new habits. So if a new habit is created in, say, 66 days, this program being 75 days, you consistently doing the same thing for 75 days, odds are, even when you're off the program, you've created some amazing habits that will carry you forward. So yeah, I've done it. I just failed, unfortunately. I felt like I would. I went out of town, but I've done it completed 3+ times. And then I've had a lot of attempts and phase 1s and things like that. But if you look at me from the beginning to 3 years later of me consistently doing this, it is just night and day difference between physical, mental, spiritual, confidence. Yeah, I'm in the best shape I've ever been in my life, and I'm 52 years old. So I'm a huge advocate of it. And there's no cheats. So you can't just take a weekend off. You can't take a day off. There's points where you're freaking exhausted 60 days in, 2 workouts a day. You're just tired. You want a rest day. You don't get a rest day. But then you push yourself and you realize I'm actually capable of a whole lot more than I ever thought I was by introducing this into my life and being diligent and disciplined with it. You recognize that you have way more capabilities than you ever thought you did.
And then you're unlocking new levels of achievement that you never thought were possible. And then you start climbing into your full potential as a person. So it's like a game. And think about, like, people say, oh, I failed. I'm like, you did 60 days in a row working out and then you stopped. And then you started again. So I'm like, where's the failure? Because when you widen that picture, that 3-year perspective, you did great.
Yeah.
Personal development takes us to frontiers we never thought were possible.
For sure. And out of the 3 years, I've been on 75 Hard, probably more than I've been off of it. So this is pretty much like the foundation of my life in some form or the other. But for me, I love it because it checks all the boxes of what I think a person should be doing in order to be feeling and thinking their best. It's not even called like a physical program. Andy talks about it as a mental mindset program, a mental toughness program, because you have to mentally be tough to carry your body physically through it. And a lot of people give up or they can't do it, or it's more than they're willing to put in the effort for.
There might be different reasons for that, but like in my own journey for this, I had to get over this idea that fitness was for like the muscle class. That it's for everybody, that a fit body creates a fit mind. That you can't just feed one and not the other. You know, you're one person and one persona. And to have a strong personality, like, you got to be a strong leader. Like, you have a lot of people depending on you. You have to make a lot of decisions every single day that affect people's lives. And you got to make that from a strong mindset. So when you had an off day, like, you almost can't have an off day. Right. You got to be on.
Or if you do, you have to do it privately and give yourself grace, but you cannot have an off day in front of anybody else as a leader. That doesn't fly. It shakes the whole foundation of everybody.
Right, because they microanalyze the leader and they'll say, if they said that's okay, or that's not the way, they said this, but they lived that way. But when you have that strong discipline, you're like, all right, this is the way. Yeah. That's it. And would you like to go this way? Would you like to take the highway out of here? Because sometimes we have to choose who's in our energy circles, right? Yeah. And as we grow, some people don't grow with us. And that's okay. But if they ever choose to grow again, the door's open. I imagine in your work, someone's come back and you welcome them back.
Yep. Yep. It's happened multiple times. Even when people leave now, I'm like, you always have a space for, we just lost somebody recently I was bummed about, but at the same time, you got to let people go figure shit out on their own. If we try to keep them against their what ifs, they'll just be there out of resentment. So for me, I've learned, you just let them go. And if they come back, it's meant to be. And if not, then they're probably, for sure, they're way better off than when they came to you. And that's a good thing. Look at the beautiful effect they're going to have on the world, wherever it is they go. So for sure, I've seen both sides of that.
Oh yeah. It's one of those things where we had a young woman in our community who would fall to addiction, and we all wanted her to get better. But the one time she came out, and even with a baby, sometimes that pull was so strong. And maybe the circle wasn't supportive enough. Or you don't get them to the right place, and sometimes they don't want to get better.
Right.
And sometimes you're like, these resources are there when you want it, but if you don't call us, we can't help you.
Yep. Yeah. And some people just aren't ready. And so you could give it to them and they're just going to like look at it and throw it away. Like a lot of times. And sometimes it takes people like a few times. Like I said, the first time they came through, it's because their parents wanted them there or the courts wanted them there. And so they were just like, I'll just do what I got to do to get back to what I'm doing. And then they'll leave and then they might come back to us and say, okay, now I'm here for me. Now I really want to dig deep and get everything I can. So there's all levels of meeting someone where they're at. We don't have locks on the doors. We don't pin people down. If they want to leave, they can walk off at any point in time. So there has to be at least some part of them that's willing to do the work. And sometimes it just snaps a month in or 3 weeks in. All of a sudden it starts clicking. All of a sudden they start realizing, wait, I can have fun and be sober. Like I didn't even think that was possible, but I'm laughing and joking in this community and we're making fun of each other. Nobody's high. Nobody wants anything from each other. Like it's an incredibly supportive environment that people who are deep in addiction don't have. Like they are always on guard out there in the world, protecting themselves, people are using each other. It's not a great world. So to be put in a community where everybody is supportively there for each other and going through the same things, there's, in my opinion, nothing better than that. And it is hard for people to leave because they get very comfortable in that environment. And so going back to their own environments with all the triggers and people and things, it can be challenging for sure.
But just the fact, knowing that it exists, there's comfort in that, right?
Yeah.
And if someone knows that in a moment of like despair, that your services exist, that there's a lifeline, right? You're shining bright as a beacon, as a lighthouse to say, you know what, we're here to elevate you, right? Literally, like that's your branding. You're in the gutter, I'm going to pick you up, or I'm going to help you stand up on your own 2 feet again. Like that,
Yep.
that's his
That's why the
power.
lotus is our. That's why the lotus is our logo. Because if you look at a lotus, it grows out of muck. Like it's literally the dankest, nastiest water, but yet the most beautiful flowers grow from it. And that's why I had that as our logo, because that 100% personifies like someone in addiction. Let's make something beautiful out of something really not great.
Oh wow! I was starting to think of my yoga, the yoga center I go to, open center yoga, where they say always face the lotus.
There you go.
So that's where renewal, that's where rebirth, renewal happens.
Yeah.
And like I said, from humble beginnings, because we came out of mud, right? God blew air into us and gave us life, right? We're all just clay or some kind of carbon matter, and that's what I think some people forget is that as people grow in their careers and their lives, sometimes people look down on others who've made a poor choice or two. They say, "Oh,
Yeah.
there's your poor choice. Let's dismiss them forever." I don't do that. In fact, I don't like the person who dismisses others. I'd rather not work with that. I want
Yeah.
to work with the person who says, "You know what? I won't give you 100 chances, but I might give you 2 or 3 if you fall down."
Yeah.
And that's reasonable because I've hired people who are former addicts, and some got better and some didn't. So
Yeah.
it worked for a time, and that's okay. Because you know what? I during that time I got great output. I had some good construction projects complete, and I gave
Right.
somebody a chance at a better life. And I think what was true, the truest testament, was one day I got a lead. Somebody wanted to sell their house, and I just spoke about my background helping out the North Philly, and the person, "Oh, I went through the program." You did? I called the founder. I'm like, "Hey, hey, do you remember this one? Oh yeah. Hey, how you doing? It's been so long, right? Hey, how you doing?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm gonna move out of the city and go into the suburbs. Oh, so you're moving on up. You're elevated, right? You're doing great. And
Yeah.
and again, that same person, I don't know where they were in that day, but I call somebody who probably had a lot, like 100 decisions to make, just like you do. But in that quick second, hey, I just want you to know that your work makes a difference. Years, like that ripple effect, leading years, even if they never talk to you again, they go build families, they go build movements, they go build businesses, right? They become creators again instead of just consumers. And you were that change agent, right? You and your organization, the mission, and the people who you've enlisted, who, again, were low and now in a better place. Again, higher
Yeah.
plane, but not needing to escape into these things that bring us down, that could lead to like
Right.
premature deaths. Because sometimes people don't know how to build good coping skills. And your program is one of, again, an esteemed few that can do that. That can bring somebody from a place of despair and have hope, optimism, and a bright future ahead. I really commend the work that you do, Angie, and keep doing it and keep firing on
Okay.
all cylinders and inspiring us. And any final words you'd like to have for the audience, either how to reach you, how to reach your center, and
Yeah. Oh boy. Okay. If you want to reach me, I'm Going Rogue Angie. Is that what it is? Angie Going Rogue. That's my Instagram handle. Sorry, we've changed it a few times. You can also find me on Facebook, Angie Manson on Facebook. And then my website or my company, if you need help, elevaterehab.org. There's 24/7 chatbot there. Phone numbers, as much information as you need about the program or myself. I would encourage you to reach out to either of those places. You will be responded to. And then inspiring words. The only thing I was thinking, because I think this is part of like our magic, is the leading from the front. As any good leader, you can, but leading it from an ivory tower or someplace where you're removed from what's going on, the pulse of your company or the pulse of what's happening, I don't think it makes you the best leader. And I really love Andy Frisella with this because he's in his office every day. He sees his people. He gets a feel. That's exactly what I am. I even ran CrossFit last night for the clients and it made me feel so good. I was like, I had being my hands dirty, whatever it is. I have 100 employees. I don't need to be running my CrossFit class, but I like being in there. I like being part of the group. I like staying immersed in the product. And like you said, that is what inspires others because of all my staff having gone through the program. That provides the best for the clients to see if I keep doing this, could be me. Or, hey, they're not asking me to do anything that I don't see them doing. And so that gets, I don't want to call it compliance, but that gets people wanting to follow you. If they see you doing what you're asking them to do, then it's a no-brainer. Yeah, of course, we're all in on this mission.
Wow. Well, this is a mission worth serving and inspires many. So, Angie, thank you so much for being on the Relief Podcast today, and many blessings ahead.
Yeah, thank you so much, Demetri. Good seeing you.
My pleasure.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Relief Podcast. It's my sincere intention that you learn something or that you grew from our time together. And if you have ideas for future episodes of who you'd like to see on the show, please send us an email at freedom@realestaterelief.com. Thanks for tuning in. See you next time.